2 days before the fire, 2 days before the fire, in that tower block, they came round and did a fire inspection. And they just happened to mention during this, oh, if there's a fire, do lock your doors and windows and stay put inside your flat. What a strange thing to mention when this fire inspection is something that never normally happens, just 2 days before over 60 people are killed in a fire in the very same building. Tragic result, this fire in London. Absolutely tragic, terrible. There's obviously lots of squabbling and arguing at who's to blame and all this, and one thing that's been ignored, the people who lived there, and they've been ignored for a long time now. Credit to the BBC, they have mentioned that the local residents in the area felt ignored and have felt pushed out. They've mentioned social cleansing, and that's because the average property is way over £1 million, which is simply unaffordable for the average wage in the UK. But here's something I want you to hear. This is something that the BBC and the other mainstream will not talk about. Now, this lad is from the area, and he was giving an interview, and unfortunately I think the presenter of this interview, Richie Allen, he did his best and he did really well, but I think he missed this one gem. He was probably busy trying to queue up something, or you know how it is when you're doing live radio, you've got 8 things on your mind at any one time, and you can't always give undivided attention to your guest because you're trying to sort other things out from a technical point of view. Anyway, this is what the lad said, and I want you to listen to this very carefully.
Voice, but nobody has disagreed with the things I'm saying. Some people here and there have said, maybe you shouldn't have sworn, or maybe you shouldn't have quite have mentioned the conspiracy stuff because it kind of discredits you a bit when you're talking.
What he means by the conspiracy stuff is that they're trying to refurbish these flats and turn them into luxury apartments, and they're doing it bit by bit. And as they're doing it, obviously the people who have lived there for I don't know how long can no longer afford it, and instead in are coming wealthy people who obviously can afford it, and the housing associations who own the properties are methodically doing this bit by bit, because obviously wealthy tenants pay more rent in luxury apartments than the basic apartments that are just for the ordinary folk who are working, but they're just not in top banking jobs. Instead, they're just doing your average wage kind of a job, which in London gets you nowhere. Anyway, that's what he was talking about. He was referencing another interview he gave onto the television that was on the regular news, and he mentioned this social cleansing and that he thought he might have something to do with that. But here's the gem. Listen to this.
Talking about regeneration and whatnot, and I get that, but I'm telling you, like, nobody disagreed with the things I was saying. Everyone was saying it was suspicious. Like, they did how did they do a fire safety inspection on the 10th of June, last Saturday, a couple of days before the incident? Bearing in mind they don't do that kind of thing. That's not a regular thing at all.
It's not a regular thing. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you where I am.
And they told people to stay in their homes if there was a fire. If they saw a fire in the building, they said the protocol is lock your doors, lock your windows. Your doors are fireproof enough. Stay in your homes.
Can we?
Alright, so he cuts him off there because he didn't hear the significance, I don't think. Did you hear what the lad just said, who lives there? They did a fire inspection 2 days before the fire, and it's not something that normally happens at all. And 2 days before the fire, They told the residents as they were doing this fire inspection, if there's a fire, lock your doors, lock your windows, you'll be fine, just stay there. And this isn't something that normally happens. Not only that, he said earlier on in the interview, I mean, if you want to listen to it, look up Richie Allen and look up musician Peaky Saku, what the media won't tell you about the fire. Now, they're focusing on the social cleansing aspect. I get that, and I think that is going on. But I think this here may be the smoking gun. I'm not saying it's for definite, but in light of everything else that's going on, you've got all the residents in that area. He says every single person he's spoken to all agree that there's something suspicious about all of this. Every single one. Now, that's not me saying it, because I live over 100 miles away. I'm talking about the people who live in and around that area. They all think it's suspicious. There's over 60 people being confirmed dead. Of course, the BBC is saying the first person who's been identified is a Syrian refugee. Why the need, every time there's some sort of incident, do the mainstream always sort of say, oh, there was a refugee, there was an Italian, there was 2 Americans, there were 3 people from Spain, there was somebody from Africa, there were 3 Chinese people, a Japanese. Have you noticed this? They're always saying this as though it's some sort of achievement at how many different nationalities were killed in one go. Anyway, my point here is the lad said, he was an articulate lad. For his age, he's been under a lot of pressure, he's gone through a lot, and yet here he is giving interviews 2 days before the fire. 2 days before the fire, in that tower block, they came round and did a fire inspection. And they just happened to mention during this, oh, if there's a fire, do lock your doors and windows and stay put inside your flat. What a strange thing to mention when this fire inspection is something that never normally happens, just 2 days before over 60 people are killed in a fire in the very same building. I have one question about this tower block fire in London that's claimed over 60 lives, and that is, residents were told to stay in their flats should a fire break out, and the media have said that this was so, and that maybe it's time to review that decision. Here's the snippet of information that the media aren't reporting on. It was just 2 days before the fire that there was a so-called fire inspection at this building, and it was just 2 days before over 60 lives were lost that residents were told, oh, if there's a fire, shut your doors, shut your windows, stay put, you'll be fine. No, I can't prove anything. I'm not accusing anyone. But what I can say is I think there are questions to be answered, and that residents have a legitimate point when they talk about things like social cleansing and other topics we all find a bit uncomfortable, but that doesn't make them any less real.